So getting to 10% body fat is not easy, especially if you're natural. It requires you to level up with your mindset and doing the things that you need to do on a daily basis, whether you feel like doing them or not. You got to put in the effort and have the patience if you want to achieve these kind of results. Now in this video, I'm going to go through my top 5 habits for achieving and maintaining at 10% body fat. So let's get into it. Now the first habit is to make your calorie deficit as easy as possible to sustain. So to lose fat, you need to be in a calorie deficit. You need to consume less calories than your body burns on a daily basis. Now people don't get to 10% body fat because they're not able to sustain their diet for long enough. You know, the diet is either too restrictive, it's too boring, or the calorie deficit is way too aggressive. And so after a few weeks, they end up giving up, they feel like crap, and then they end up going on a binge afterwards. This is why a lot of people don't get to 10% body fat. It's not because, they're not disciplined enough. It's just because their calorie deficit is way too aggressive or their diet is just way too restrictive. Now, this is a cycle I see very often and it's called yo-yo dieting. You want to avoid this as much as possible. You want to make your calorie deficit as easy as possible to sustain for a long enough amount of time, whether that be 16, 20, or even 24 weeks. And the way to do that is either reduce your calories slowly over time, or just be in a moderate calorie deficit, so around 20% off your maintenance calories, and just stick on that for the duration of your cuts. Now, this is a bit more risky as you can end up reaching diet fatigue much faster, which is why I would prefer to go with the first option. Now, the mistake many people make is that they drop the calories way too low too fast, so they end up being in a very large and aggressive calorie deficit that's over 30% off their maintenance calories. So they end up feeling like crap, they have no energy, and they end up giving up after a few weeks of dieting. And that's why they're not able to get to that 10% body fat. Now, you want to drop your calories slowly over time so that you don't feel like you're actually in a calorie deficit and it's not a shock to your body. Because if you drop your calories too low, too fast, you're going to have a major shock, and then you're just going to end up having no energy. So that's why I say to drop your calories slowly over time. And this way, you'll be able to lose fat over a longer duration rather than trying to lose fat in a short duration and then not succeeding. So you don't want to do a crash diet. That's one of the worst things you want to do. And secondly, you don't want to restrict yourself from certain foods or certain food groups. Now, on this channel, I do preach to throw out all junk food because it will help when it comes to losing fat. But you don't have to make your meals bland and boring. You don't have to have chicken and rice or salad and soup all day. You can experiment with different meals that are healthy and tasty at the same time. For example, this high protein dessert that I have pretty much every day. And you can also have cheat meals once in a while. It's not going to kill you. You don't want to completely cut out certain foods if you really don't want to, because then it's just going to make your diet completely unsustainable and you're not going to do it for a long enough period of time. So you want to flexible diet is what I call it. You want to have foods that you enjoy time to time, just include them into your calories and just make sure you're still eating in a calorie deficit. That's the best thing to do. And that's called flexible dieting, where you're consuming foods that you enjoy from time to time, but it's within your calories. So you're able to sustain it for your entire life. For me, the flexible dieting approach works really well. And if you want me to do a full video on that, explaining what it is and how to do it, then drop a comment down below and I'll do the video. And lastly, you want to make your meals as satiating as possible, because the worst feeling at the end of the day is when you've had your calories for the day and you're still feeling hungry afterwards, because then it's more likely you're going to eat more food. So to avoid this happening, you want to have foods that have a higher satiety, like lean protein, for example, lean like chicken breast, lean beef, and even fish like tuna. These foods are basically all protein, and it's going to make you feel more full up. So if majority of your calories come from that and unprocessed carbs as well, then it's going to make it much easier for you to stay and maintain your calorie deficit. So habit number 2 is resistance training, but utilizing progressive overloading. Now, so many people put a lot of emphasis on cardio, for example, running, HIIT workouts, boot camps, because they want to burn as many calories as possible, because the more calories you burn, the more fat you lose, right? Well, that's not really how it works. In fact, the fat you're going to lose is going to come from eating in a calorie deficit, as I mentioned previously. Now, you want to resistance train so that you can maintain and build muscle mass, so that when you do lose weight, it's going to come from fat and not muscle. you'll be able to preserve as much muscle as possible if you're resistance training, rather than doing so much cardio where you'll end up losing fat and muscle mass. So that's why resistance training is very important. Now, you want to also progressively overload. You want to try and build muscle mass, because the more muscle mass you have, it will give you that aesthetic look. It'll give you the frame, the posture, and the shape that I know a lot of you guys want. So that's why it's important to progressively overload. Now, there's no point coming to the gym and just, training with ease, with like very little intensity and just maintaining your weights every single week, every single month. Because yeah, you'll maintain what you have, but you won't build more muscle mass. And as you build more muscle mass, you'll also burn more fat. So if you want to get down to 10% body fat and maintain at that level, then it'll be much easier if you have more muscle mass on your frame, because muscle burns fat. So as you build more muscle mass, as you get leaner, it'll be much easier for you to maintain at a low body fat percentage. So for example, this is how to progressively overload by increasing weights. So every 1 to 3 weeks, you want to try and increase the reps on every single lift by 1. And then until you get to around 12 reps with very good form, then you can increase the weight by a small amount. And then try and get to 12 reps again with that weight with very good form. So it's a cycle. You keep doing this until you reach a strength where you're pretty happy with and you've built a lot of muscle mass. So this is not going to be linear, of course. You're going to have a few bumps. It's going to be 2 steps forward and 1 step back. That's what generally happens in my case. But this is something that you want to aim for. Now, there are other ways to progressively overload by increasing the intensity, increasing your volume, slowing down the reps, and there are much more. But for me, increasing strength is one of the best ways to progressively overload. If you can increase your strength over time, you'll definitely build more muscle mass. So that's why I focus more on the strength part of progressively overloading, rather than taking less rest between sets, increasing the intensity. I like resting more between sets so I can then hit a heavier weight for the next set. So I will leave a link down below to progressively overloading and the different ways you can progressively overload. I've done a full video on that, so the link will be in the description. If you want to watch it, then click the link. Also, just to mention, you don't need to train 5 to 6 times a week. You can actually train 3 to 4 times a week and still build muscle and strength. You just need to follow a well-structured training program. So habit number 3 is just walking more. Now, you can either wake up early and go for a walk in the morning, or you can walk after dinner in the evening. Both are great options. Now, walking is such an underrated tool when it comes to fat loss. I've stated this in many of my other videos. The thing is, a lot of your calories are burnt through your NEAT. So majority of calories that you burn throughout the day come from your NEAT, which is your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which are the little things that you do throughout the day. So like fidgeting and walking comes under this as well. So the more you walk, the more calories that you'll burn over a longer duration of time. Now, walking also doesn't tire you out completely. So compared to, let's say, a HIIT workout or running, walking feels like nothing. You can go for a walk, a 30-minute to an hour walk, and you'll still have energy afterwards. But if you do a HIIT workout for 30 minutes or you go for a run for 30 minutes, you'll just be dead. You'll be drained out and you'll have no energy. And therefore, it's more likely you'll move less throughout the day and you'll do less fidgeting. So therefore, your NEAT will drop. And overall, you'll burn less calories. And that's why walking is so underrated. And for me, it's just a much better idea, because walking is a win-win. You don't drain your energy and you still burn more calories. So that's why start walking more. And the best times to walk, in my opinion, are early in the morning when you do have energy. So just wake up earlier. If you really don't have time and you're busy with work, then just wake up earlier and go for a 30-minute to an hour walk when you have the most energy. And that way you can clear your head. You'll burn calories straight off the bat in the morning. You can get that out of the way. And if you feel like you're unproductive, because sometimes even when I walk, I feel like I'm not really doing anything, not really working. So then just, read some emails, reply to some emails, think about new ideas while you go for the walk, and just do something productive. You can still do things while walking, which is one of the benefits of walking. So either do that, or if you really don't want to wake up early, then just walk in the evening after dinner. So instead of just watching Netflix, which is what most people do, including myself as well at times, just go for a walk after dinner. And that's another benefit that you're going to get from walking, because you're going to have food in your system, and the best way to digest it is just going for a walk. So instead of just lying on the couch being lazy after dinner doing nothing, if you have time and you have fat to lose and you want to get down to 10% body fat, or you just want to maintain there, then just go for a walk after dinner if you don't go for a walk in the morning, or throughout the day you've just been sitting all day. So habit number 4 is tracking metrics. Now this was one of the biggest game changers for me. It actually helped me to improve and change my life. When I started tracking my lifts, it made it much easier for me to progress and increase my strength over time. When I started tracking my calories, it made it much easier for me to lose fat. So I've trained a lot of clients over the past 10 years, and a clear trend that I see is that the clients that track everything on a daily and weekly basis end up making a much better transformation. Now it's funny how that works, but that clearly showed me that if you put more effort into tracking and analyzing everything, then it's more likely going to make much better and faster progress. So tracking metrics include your weight every day. Now I would suggest do this first thing in the morning before you've eaten anything to keep the consistency, and that'll be your actual body weight. If you eat water or you drink, if you drink water or you eat something, then that's not going to be an accurate representation of your weight. It's not going to be accurate. So that's why weigh yourself on an empty stomach first thing in the morning, and do that every single day to keep that consistency. Now, if your weight on average is going up on a weekly basis, that means you're just eating too much and you need to cut down. And you need to then analyze and adjust your calories. And that brings me on to the next one, which is to analyze your calories, track your calories. So tracking calories for me was the biggest game changer when it came to actually building an aesthetic physique. This habit is the single most important habit when it comes to losing weight. Now, if you're not tracking your calories, then how the hell do you know if you're eating in a calorie deficit or not? And that's why it's vital for you to start tracking your calories. If someone asks me what's the number one habit you would recommend for people to do over the entire life for losing weight, it will be this hands down. Now remember, when it comes to losing fat, you just need to be in a calorie deficit, and you can do that only through tracking your calories. Now, other things you can track are tracking your weights and progress in the gym. This is especially important if you want to add muscle mass onto your frame. Tracking your cardio and your steps. So if you're really not losing fat and you've hit a plateau, then you can just increase your cardio and your step counts. And tracking your sleep. Now you can use a Whoop to do this, but for me, I personally don't like to track my sleep because it just gets into my head, and if I see I've had a bad sleep overnight, then for me the next day is ruined, because I've seen that I've not had a lot of sleep, and so that'll get into my head, and then the whole day will be ruined. So that's why I don't really track my sleep, but a lot of people do, and it is a good metric to track if you want to make progress for fat loss, because again, sleep is very important when it comes to your hormones, your hormonal balance, and that'll help you to lose fat. So if you know you need to improve your sleep, and for example your Whoop is telling you that you have on average bad sleep and you need to improve, then you can start to improve your sleep, and that will help you to lose more fat. But for me personally, I don't like to do that, but I know a lot of fitness professionals and a lot of people like to do that. So that's another way to track. And the final life-changing habit is sleeping early. Now, when I was younger, I used to sleep very late. So I used to sleep around 11, 12 and wake up around, let's say, 8 or 9. And then once I switched to sleeping at 9 or 10 and waking up around 4 or 5 a.m., man, what a difference it makes. It may not seem like it's going to make a huge difference, just sleeping a few hours earlier. What can that really do with you? Will that really help? But trust me, it makes a world of difference, because when I started sleeping earlier and waking up much earlier, I had so much more energy, and I felt like I had a lot more time to get things done throughout the day. So even if, I had to do more cardio, I had to work out for longer, or I had to get more steps in, I had the time to do that without it interfering with my work. So I know a lot, when I was waking up, later, when I woke up around 8 or 9 a.m., then I would by the time I got out of bed, had breakfast, it'll be 10, 11 a.m. And by then, half the day was already gone. So all I really had time to do was work, eat, and then sleep. And this is what a lot of people's day looks like, because they end up going to sleep late, waking up late, and then they don't really have time to do anything else throughout the day rather than just work, eat, and sleep. Because by the time then you come home from work at, let's say, 6, 7 at night, you're just tired, you want to relax, you don't really want to do any movement. So you don't have that much energy. But if you go to sleep earlier, let's say 9, and then wake up at 4, you have so much more energy, so much more time. You can go for a walk early in the morning, or even if you start working earlier in the day, then you have the rest of the day. Then you can finish earlier from work, and you have the rest of the day to do your workout and to do more cardio. So for me, going to sleep earlier and waking up earlier was a massive game changer for my productivity. But also it helps with the actual health as well, because if you have a better circadian rhythm, then your hormones are going to be much more balanced. And if your hormones are more balanced, then it will be less likely that you overeat on your calories. It will be much easier for you to stay in a calorie deficit and eat healthier food if your circadian rhythm is on point. You know, your sleep is on point, it's all regulated, your hormones are regulated, and it just makes it much easier for you to then eat higher quality foods. So that's another reason why sleep is so important. So guys, make sure you start going to sleep earlier. Start going to sleep at 9, 10 p.m. instead of 11, 12. So a few ways that actually helped me to start to sleep earlier was by setting an alarm earlier before bed, so around 8, 9 p.m. That way I would wind down before work, relax for an hour, and then go to sleep. And also to get blackout curtains, because that will help with much better sleep quality, a complete dark room. And by setting your thermostat to a temperature that is best for you, so that again your sleep quality will be much better, you'll be less tossing and turning and have a much more relaxed sleep. And by having some tea at night, so I like to have chamomile tea, it helps me to relax and calm my mind down before I go to bed. And those are the 3 ways that may help you as well get to bed earlier. So try those things out and let me know if it works. And definitely stay away from fizzy and energy drinks. Those are the worst things to have before bed. Now, I know a lot of people actually have caffeinated drinks before bed, and I'm just like, why? That's like the worst thing to do, because that's just going to make you stay up all night and you'll just have poor sleep quality. So just don't have any caffeinated drinks before bed. So fizzy drinks and energy drinks, have that hours before. So guys, those are the 5 life-changing habits that help me to achieve and maintain that 10% body fat, and I'm sure they'll help a lot of you to get to that level as well. And if you did enjoy this video and you found it helpful, then do me a favor and smash the like button. And if you're new to the channel and you like my content, then do me another favor and hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell notifications, because I'm going to be releasing a video every single week just like this, and you don't want to miss them. And if you want to know my top 10 weight loss tips on how to become shredded, then I recommend watching this video next. And remember, stay natty, stay clean, and peace.